Shabbat Shalom. So I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that most of you are old enough that you can probably remember arguing over what channel to put the TV on. Work with me here. Go back into the dusty recesses of memory. And you remember there was this thing called a TV, and there was maybe one, maybe two in the house. And the second one was usually black and white and not very big. And it might come around to Wednesday evening, Tuesday evening, Thursday evening. And on the 4 channels that your TV could get, there would be 2 programs that different people wanted to watch in the household. One person wanted to watch Channel 4, one person wanted to watch Channel 9. And, well, it was a problem, because you could only tune in one at a time. And there was no VCR to record and then watch later the one that you were missing. And there was definitely no video on demand to provide you a chance to see it later. And if you're really old enough, you might remember there weren't even reruns happening anytime soon. How did you settle this diplomatic incident in your households? We took turns. All right, so one person would get to pick one week, one person would get to pick another week. So you could end up having a rotation. Very good. I heard another shout in the back. Whatever Dad wanted. All right, whoever was the leader of the household, whether it be Dad, Mom, or Grandpa, or whoever, they got first dibs. And everybody would respect their decision. But if the authority figure wasn't there, was there a hierarchy, Bernie, or was it a free-for-all once the king wasn't in the room? Whoever was tallest. Ah, indeed. Sometimes, speaking perhaps from personal experience, it might come down to who was there first, but sometimes who was there first wouldn't really matter if who was there second was bigger. And the siblings certainly might have another opinion about what should be on, and if you weren't willing to get into a wrestling match, you ended up watching what they wanted to watch if there wasn't an authority figure around to straighten this out. Now, why is this no longer a problem? Why is this not a major concern? We all go to our own corners, we watch our own device by ourselves, and nothing really worth watching is being broadcast exclusively at a single moment in time. The only thing that really does is maybe the Super Bowl, where if you want to watch the Super Bowl, it's going to be on this channel, and it's going to be at this time, and that's pretty much it. But then usually most people are okay watching that together. But all the other programs that we are flooded with, and we are in the golden age, if that's the right term, of content creation, all of them are accessible through multiple devices and at any time that we please. If you want to sit up and watch the reruns of I Dream a Genie at 2 a.m. on your phone in your bed, you can do that. And if you want to watch the news, well, 24 hours a day, you can find plenty of options to watch news. In fact, you can find news that will be specifically catered to your own personal tastes and interests. You don't even have to settle for some generic news. It can be curated precisely for you. And if you think it's been good so far, well, now we are living on the threshold of the AI revolution, which means not only will there be content that will be catered to you, meaning that they will know what your preferences are, will have tracked all of your patterns and all of your behaviors in order to know what you are most likely to enjoy best. But coming soon to a device near you, it will generate it for you precisely in the way you want. You want there to be an action show, but you think the lead should be a blonde rather than a brunette? Fine, tap the button, and now they're a blonde. You would rather they didn't have a British accent because you find it hard to understand? Fine, now they sound Australian. You can curate, coming soon, trust me, you can curate your experiences down to be precisely tailored to you like the finest suit from Savile Row. And this, of course, will make your life horrible. Because your life is already worse off than in the days of wrestling for the remote control. I know it feels like wrestling for the remote control was worse than each of us just having our own device and getting to do what we want. But there is a nobility that comes to the human experience from actually trying to work through a problem with another human being, rather than being solely able to saturate our lives with our own preferred experience, to sometimes have to say, we're going to take turns. To sometimes say, I'm going to respect that my father wants to watch this and I can watch something else another time when he's not here. We see in this week's Torah portion the beginning of that realization for our people. I will remind you that we've been going through since the beginning of the story of Genesis an entire plot line of basically how do we do this thing called living. We started off with the notion that we have choices. We started off with the notion that we continue with the idea that God is not going to clean up all the results of our bad choices, that things are going to stick around. Remember that every time you see a rainbow. We realize that it's not going to happen en masse. We're going to have to begin with an individual family, and that's going to be Abraham. And Abraham is going to have to do the hard work of both justice as well as decisions that are more prosaic, such as the burial of his wife. Well, now we are recognizing that if this family is going to grow, if this family will continue to become truly multiple nations that can be together, then something else has to give. And that is our own personal demands. You see, it is hard. If you are in a position to get what you want at the expense of another person, it is hard to realize why you shouldn't. This is one of the great realizations that eventually hits different communities at different times that allow them to support concepts such as community participation or even democracy, where you realize that the overall process is more valuable than getting 100% of what I want. Because if I truly felt that I have the authority or I have the might to get 100% of what I want, then why in the world would I ever compromise? Unless there is benefit through that compromise that supersedes the actual thing that I am arguing about. And that, to go back to our TV example, is exactly what happened. Now, I don't know exactly whether you all learned the right forms of compromise or conciliation to one another, but ultimately, that struggle for the remote control and its resolution, if it was peaceful and harmonious, eventually teaches us that this is how we live in the broader realm as well. It's not only for small things, but for large things. That we must recognize that what we want is not always going to match what someone else wants, and that the process of working out a compromise is superior to getting 100% of what I want. Because if I do not compromise, and they do not compromise, even if, in our case of TV, we can each enjoy what we want separately, individually, on our own devices, we are killing the activity, the process, the community that comes from sharing that one experience simultaneously. And without that shared experience, without that feeling that sometimes another person's presence in my life is worth the inconvenience of not getting 100% of what I want, in fact, is greater than the value of getting exactly the show I want when I want. Once we realize that, then we are on the right track, and this is very hard. I know it's hard because we are going to spend the rest of the book of Bereshit on this exact problem. The remainder of the stories of our ancestors, of Jacob and Esau, and then Jacob's sons, and all the way through to Ephraim and Manasseh, is going to be, can we actually make this work? Can we actually put up with each other when we disagree? Can we realize that the value of the relationship supersedes the value of what I am seeking in our discussion? Eventually we get there. I know we get there because we're here. That is to say, up till the very end of Genesis, it seems like those, even within the same family, cannot find a way to compromise, cannot find a way to be together while disagreeing and each getting a little bit less than they otherwise could. We saw that falling out with Ishmael and Isaac. We are seeing that falling out now with Ishmael with Esau and Jacob, and we're going to see it explode in the story of Joseph. But eventually we get it right. And when we get it right, we transition. We transition from being this family that God is trying to build up so that at least one pocket of the world can hold on to this way of living, and become a nation that itself will not only be cohesive in and of itself, but will be able to reach out to the world. As we say, Or LaGoyim, a light to the other nations, to show them that it is possible to orient ourselves towards God, to orient ourselves towards something greater than the latest curated content that happens to tickle our fancy. We can marvel at the technology, and we can even indulge from time to time, but recognize constantly that there is a higher value and a higher worth that comes from struggling with another human being in opposition, but doing so because you want them to be with you, and that is the ultimate worth. Shabbat Shalom.